the stares, the shame, that feeling of inadequacy. If you're anything like me, at some point in your life, you've probably written this before. Some variation of me and my friend. And someone's probably told you that you're wrong, that it's incorrect grammar. But who actually decides that? Surely there's some figure of authority who knows the answer to this. A single authoritative body to protect our language from evildoers who corrupt the grammatical sanctity of our language. But there isn't. And whilst there are dictionaries out there, none of them actively try to dictate how we should use language. But if we were to go to, say, France, Spain, Japan, or Turkey, you'd find organizations set up for the purpose of dictating how their populations should speak. So why don't we have one? Are language organizations simply an overly authoritarian means of social control? Or are they a necessary part of maintaining the integrity of a language? In France, they have l'Académie Française. In Turkey, the Türk Dil Kurumu. Spain, the Royal Academy, with a similar organisation existing in Japan. Now, although these organisations can't exactly change the way people speak, they're highly influential, especially in the education systems of these countries. Because if you can control words, you can control language, and if you can control language, you can control people. Now you might think that messing with language is some despotic form of state control, and sometimes it kind of is, but often it's done for quite practical reasons. For example, in the 1920s, Turkish was written using the Arabic script, which although great for Semitic languages, didn't fit well with Turkish phonology. This character, va, could represent the consonant V, as well as all of these vowels. I know, very confusing. So in 1926, this guy, Kemal Atatürk, founder of the modern Turkish Republic, set up an institution which later became the TDK to regulate the Turkish language. And in 1928, the modified Latin script was introduced, better reflecting the phonology of Turkish, with the TDK, the Turkish Language Authority, getting rid of the letters Q, W and X, which weren't really used that much, and adding these additional glyphs. Similarly, after gaining independence, the Kazakh government enacted a number of changes, including increased standardization, Kazakh becoming an official language, and the gradual phasing in of the Latin script to replace Cyrillic. So yeah, language institutions can offer practical solutions to very real problems, removing unnecessary complexity, increasing literacy rates, establishing new geopolitical alliances, and creating a sense of national identity. But how can any one person have the authority to change an entire language? It's at this time that I should introduce you to two key concepts: prescriptivism and descriptivism. Prescriptivism is the idea that we should control how people use language through either the use of regulatory bodies, the media, or education. Descriptivists would argue that what is linguistically correct is based on a general consensus, and that the role of language organizations should be to describe how people use language instead of trying to tell them how to. The internet. Littered with niche terms, misspellings, and strange euphemisms used by people in order to avoid censorship, many would argue that words like this are incorrect, that they're corruptions of proper formal language. But whether you like them or not, it's impossible to deny that these neologisms are gaining increased usage. And if we consider the future where everyone used these internet forms, would they then become the official correct forms? Should they? Well, descriptivists would say so. Today, advocates for descriptivism far outnumber those of prescriptivism, and examples of this in practice include urban dictionaries of slang terms, official dictionaries' inclusion of words recently made popular, as well as the scientific study of dialects previously considered by many to be improper. But that begs the question, if people aren't being told to change their language, why do languages change so much? The answer might actually lie in babies. When we're small and still trying to learn our first language, our brains are still sensitive to basically all possible sounds that humans can make. And when it comes to actually producing them, babies show a bias to certain sounds, leading to certain mispronunciations becoming common. This suggests that certain sounds are fundamentally easier to pronounce than others, and it's likely that over time, these biases shape the phonology of languages. An example of this in English being the move from rotacity, the pronunciation of the R sound, to non-rotacity, the pronunciation which is now the prevalent form in the UK. Language change also occurs on the semantic level due to language contact. Cookie and biscuit, which originally meant the same thing, now have different connotations in the UK than in the US, due to a phenomenon known as synonymy avoidance. And in terms of morphology, we've borrowed tons of affixes in order to fit our communicative needs. So yeah, whilst having a regulatory body in English would be cool and fix a lot of inconsistencies, a sheer number of dialects in the UK alone means an institution like this would likely be very impractical, not to mention highly unpopular. We've also survived thousands of years without one, and concepts like linguistic purity are largely irrelevant to English, considering 70% of our words are of foreign origin. Anyway, that's all for this week. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tune in next week.